I just ran a super high level, in depth analysis breakdown of the Big 12, and the results were not surprising. This is by far the most chaotic conference out there. But the question is, what does this mean? Well, it means Iowa State is still in it.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Nick Marovitz. Thank you for making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Be sure to hit subscribe down below so we can prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. And today, we're talking about Iowa State in comparison to the Big 12. Obviously, Iowa State had a bye last week, didn't incur a loss, as far as I know. So, got through the bye week on our end, but the rest of the Big 12 did not stop. It was chaos. And I think Iowa State's in a pretty good spot. So we'll talk about that first. Then we're going to dive into this week against BYU. What does that game look like? What does Iowa State need to do well to get back into this race? We'll talk about that in the second segment. Then finally, we're going to talk basketball. Obviously, an exhibition does not count against Creighton, but it wasn't pretty. So what happened there, and what does the basketball team look like moving forward? We'll talk about that at the end. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Iowa State, 2 losses in conference. We all thought this season was coming to an end. We thought everything was burning to the ground after 2 straight losses for Iowa State. Myself included. I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't exactly feeling the most optimistic. But after this last weekend, I feel a lot better. Not like we're going to win at all, because obviously Iowa State still needs to play well. But the field is now a much more manageable field, okay? We talked about this on, I think it was Thursday, that we previewed some of the big games upcoming. And I think they all went right about Iowa State's way, except for maybe one, okay? Arizona State upset Texas Tech 26-22. What a field storm as well there. That was a big win. Iowa State absolutely needed that to go that way, I think. BYU beat Utah. That was another pretty much non-negotiable in a lot of ways. Utah falls to 5-2, 2-2 in conference. Cincinnati beat Oklahoma State. I guess this one you could argue Cincinnati losing would have helped Iowa State, but I just don't think that anybody had that happening, right? That one was a foregone conclusion. Oklahoma State now 0-4 in the Big 12. Houston gets the win over Arizona. That was a game that I was circling, like, hey, look out for Houston, not because of how good they are, but I mean, they are still going to be a good team if they beat an Arizona team, but it's more so what their record's at right now and what they're looking at the rest of the season as far as schedule goes. So that one didn't go Iowa State's way either, in my opinion. But Baylor, TCU comes away with a win. I don't think that one was groundbreaking. 2-2 in the Big 12. Both of those teams now, it's whatever. West Virginia, UCF, that was a game we didn't really even have circled, to be honest. That one's below Iowa State. So with everything shaking out the way that it did this last weekend, that leads the conference into a position where you have 2 unbeaten teams, BYU and Cincinnati, in conference play. Obviously, Cincinnati has the loss to Nebraska, but in conference play is what we're looking at. Arizona State, Texas Tech, Houston, all 3-1 in conference play. And then you've got a big conglomerate, a big group of 2-2 teams. This is the Big 12, what I'm looking at right here. Iowa State, TCU, Baylor, Kansas State, Utah, and Kansas, all 2-2 in conference play. Now, if I count that up correctly, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 teams that are 2-2 or better, right? These 1-3 teams, I don't think are gunning for a shot at the Big 12 title. But I do think if you're 2-2 or better, you're probably looking at a chance to make the Big 12 title game. And Iowa State is in that. They're in that conversation, okay? So I took a look at, anyone who's 2-2, Iowa State's just going to have to hope that they play better than those teams, right? They're not really behind those teams right now. They beat Kansas State. They haven't played any of these other teams. No TCU, no Baylor. They'll play TCU, but as of right now, no Baylor, no Utah, no Kansas. Those will be played later in the season. So for now, just going to leave those alone. I'm worried about Houston, Texas Tech, Arizona State, Cincinnati, BYU ahead of Iowa State. The teams with a 3-1 record or better. Now, Iowa State does play Arizona State and BYU to end the season, or in the remainder of the season, not to end the season. So those two games they have some level of control over. They already lost to Cincinnati. That one we should have had control over, but we didn't. Okay, that leaves basically two teams ahead of Iowa State that we don't have any control at all over. Texas Tech, who is 3-1 now, and Houston, who is 3-1. Now, as I mentioned, Houston does have a relatively easy path. They will play Arizona State, but other than that, it's West Virginia, UCF, TCU, Baylor. TCU, Baylor, both going to be tough, right? Both Texas schools. Not a walk in the park for Houston by any means, but you go West Virginia and UCF, that's a pretty favorable schedule. So keep that in mind. Texas Tech, what was previously thought to be the best team in the Big 12, maybe one of the best teams in college football, now with the drop to Arizona State, faces Oklahoma State, Kansas State, BYU, UCF, West Virginia. That is probably the most troubling, in my opinion. Okay. Now, unless the wheels fall off for Texas Tech, I think they'll probably get to the end of the season with one loss. I don't think anyone expected a team to go undefeated in the Big 12. And I think if anyone had a team going undefeated, it was Texas Tech. So now we can kind of write off the undefeated notion. Obviously, BYU and Cincinnati in conference play still have a shot. But I think we're going to kind of just look at Texas Tech as the team that everyone had going undefeated. You're going to pick up a loss at some point, right? They got it against Arizona State. They have a relatively easy schedule the rest of the way. Not a gimme, right? Still BYU in there. Still Kansas State in there. But Oklahoma State, UCF, and West Virginia, those aren't teams on Texas Tech's level. Okay. So Texas Tech and Houston still going to be teams that, Iowa State just needs to get lucky, just needs help to be able to beat those teams. But looking at Cincinnati, Arizona State, and finally BYU, obviously playing this week, those are teams that Iowa State, I guess not Cincinnati because, well, we already lost to them, but BYU and Arizona State, both teams that Iowa State can beat. I think Iowa State still has a shot at making the Big 12 title game, right? If they beat both BYU and Arizona State, beating Arizona State drops them to a 2-loss in conference team, and you would have the tiebreaker over them. BYU would be 4-1 in conference, right? And they would only need to pick up one more before you're on the same level and tied and have that head-to-head. And they have a relatively tough rest of the schedule. They have Iowa State this week, of course, Texas Tech, TCU, Cincinnati, and then UCF. So that does feel relatively nice that you have a team ahead of Iowa State who doesn't just play the bottom dwellers of the Big 12. I will admit that is a good feeling. That being said, they're not all that way. Like we've already looked at Cincinnati, Baylor, Utah, Arizona, BYU, TCU. Maybe Utah is good. Baylor's going to give a lot of teams a run for their money. BYU, I guess we'll see this week, especially up close and personal. Arizona seems to maybe be in these conversations, whereas TCU, like that's not a walk in the park, but it's not necessarily I would say BYU has a tough schedule the rest of the way. I would honestly say Iowa State has a relatively tough schedule the rest of the way. Look, Iowa State's going to need help. Absolutely, they're going to need help. But the teams in front of them, they have control over two of them remaining in their schedule. And I do think that they'll get some help. If they get help, I think this Iowa State team could finish out the year strong. We've done all this talking about all these other teams. Iowa State still needs to show up and play ball, right? Iowa State still needs to show up, beat BYU this week, beat Arizona State the week after, beat TCU, beat Kansas. Obviously, the Oklahoma State game, I think we all can agree with where our head's at right now, but still have to beat Oklahoma State, right? You can't just show up and assume the wins. You lost to a Colorado team, not this last weekend, but the weekend prior to that one, right? You lost to Cincinnati, who might be a very, very good team, but still a loss. Now you have no room for error. I think this team's capable of it, of getting the wins, but what do they need to do to get those wins? So that's what we're going to talk about coming about right here in 1 second. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, even followed the live lines during games because you guys know I'm not the best at making up my mind prior to kickoff. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's episode is also brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversion counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. Their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. Whether you're a solo operator juggling everything apart or juggling everything or a part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. So we did a lot of talking about kind of the real estate of the Big 12. What is Iowa State looking at in comparison to themselves? But at some point, you got to suit them up. You got to put the helmet on. You got to run around on the actual football field, score more points than your opponent. Breaking news here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I know, but this is where we talk about it. Okay, this is where, with obviously this upcoming game against BYU, we talk about what does Iowa State have to do? What does Iowa State have to change to fix this season? Right now, right here. Let's go. We're sitting here. Let's do it. Iowa State did look very good to start the season. Obviously, the 5-0 start was electric. I think every fan was super excited, mostly because going into this season, there were a lot of question marks. And I talked about this last week where Iowa State, I thought they answered all those questions. And I thought that my questions really around everything but the secondary had been answered as far as what this team was capable of. And I no longer felt this level of concern, right? I felt like they were I knew what they were at least able or capable of doing. And then the last 2 weeks, they kind of just decided, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. So that was where the problem lied, in my opinion. I think that this team is very capable of having a high-powered offense, having an explosive, consistent, run-the-field type of offense, consistently staying on schedule, long drives, whatever. And I think that this defense is also very capable of shutting down teams. Now, the problem is either both of those things are not going at the same time or they're not acting consistently enough to give Iowa State momentum in games. Because against Cincinnati, the defense was really good in the second half. Against Colorado, the defense was really good in the first half. You need to kind of do that the whole game, or else you run into problems. The offense, we've seen flashes. We've seen what they're capable of doing, but it might flame out at the end of a drive, or it might only be 1 or 2 drives per game, and then there's issues with the line, or there's issues with receivers not understanding where they need to be, or whatever the case is, right? That's what I'm talking about with this team is we need some sort of consistency, and I think against BYU, it's going to be more important than ever. This BYU team is very good. We're not going to sit here and do some super in-depth analysis on what BYU is and who they are and what they're capable of. That'll come later this week. And I'm sure we'll talk with Jake Hatch of Locked On BYU and get a super good breakdown as well. Okay. But I'm pretty much just looking at Iowa State right now and saying offensively, I'm going to say it again, this team needs to adopt the identity of going out and scoring 65 points a game. Okay. Now, does that mean you need to go for it on 4th and 12 on your own 8-yard line? It's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying go out there and be reckless. But I think that this team, even with Conradi back, right? I haven't heard any news on what the status of Conrarity is, but we're kind of starting to look at where he comes back somewhere in the next few weeks, maybe this week, maybe next week, maybe the week after. Who knows, right? But even if Conrarity comes back, I think this team needs to adopt the identity of we're going to go out, and if it's 4th and 4 or 4th and 3, and we're, on the edge of field goal range here, we're going for it. We are not like every drive, we are scoring touchdowns. They're capable of doing it. Mauser is capable of putting this team in a position to be successful. I've seen him do it. The problem is I've also seen him motion a tight end in and try to surprise the defense with some weird tight end quarterback sneak. Why are we doing that? Why are we running double reverse? Like what? Let's just do what we're good at. That's a problem with Mauser. This team offensively is capable. We have the talent at tight end. I would like to see this team start to prioritize, target those tight ends more. We got away from that the last 2 weeks. Let's get back to that. We have the talent out at wide receiver. I'm not saying ignore the talent at wide receiver, but use them as supplemental offense. I don't think that they are the key to this. I don't think you're going to get, well, even if you get 300 yards of offense through the wide receivers, it just doesn't make the offense click. It doesn't make the offense move down the field in the same way. I think the first 4 or 5 games were a perfect example. I would say maybe 4, obviously, because Arizona was the breakout Chase Sowell game, of what this offense can be if you run it through the tight ends and you leave those wide receivers as an option for, okay, if the defense forgets that they're on the field, they're still very talented. Boom, free 60-yard play, right? Like that's how I envision this offense going a little bit more. And as far as the running backs goes, we don't know exactly what we're looking at if Carson Hansen's in or not right now, based on what I'm seeing. Concussion was what we last heard. So that could be 3 days. That could be 10 weeks. We don't know for sure. Hopefully it's nothing. But even so, Abu Sama, very talented running back. You can absolutely tear up teams and we saw that against Colorado. I want to see Abu Sama utilized. I want to see these tight ends utilized. And I want to see them go out and pick up 3 yards of play, right? No penalties. That's another issue that Iowa State's been running into the last few weeks. Let's keep the penalties to a minimum, stay on track. We can get into a 4th and 2 and feel totally comfortable with going for that. And now we constantly we're demoralizing the defense with continuing these long drives, whatever, trucking our way down the field, scoring on every time we have the ball, every possession. And along with that, you're eating up the clock. This team's capable of going out and throwing a 60-yard touchdown too. Like sometimes you got to do that. If they're going to give it to you, score it that way. And Mauser talked about that prior to the season where he's like, I'm not always going to be able to go in and develop this 10, 11, 12 play drive. Sometimes you just got to go with what the defense gives you. And I agree with that. I haven't talked about the defense because I'm not really trusting the defense the rest of this way. If the defense makes some stops, great. I just haven't seen them be consistent enough. They're capable. They absolutely are. I think part of the Colorado game, honestly, was Colorado was not playing very well in that half. They weren't. Iowa State was getting help from Colorado. That's not where you want to be getting help from. If you want sustained success, you kind of don't want to be getting help from your opponent. Obviously helps, but it's not where you want to be. So I am okay with this team. Personally, this is just my opinion, right? I want to see this team go out and score as many points as possible. I don't want to see them shying away from crazy play calls. I want to be very clear on how I say this. Not crazy in the kind of cute, fancy play call way. I mean, don't shy away from throwing it down the field, right? Don't shy away from opening up the offensive playbook in a way where you can score right away in games. Don't wait till the fourth quarter. Don't wait. Just go out and do it. Score points. 4th and 4, 4th and 6 from their 20. But the problem isn't if you go for it there. The problem is your identity. The problem is, are you going to go for it next time? The problem is if you go for 2 and you go score back to back in the middle 4, middle 8 of the game, are you going to go for 2 again? Right? You know what I'm referencing. Are you going to go for 2 a second time if you go for it to make it a 16-point game? That's the identity piece I'm talking about. This team needs to have that identity of we're going to go out and score points. If they can do that, I like where this team's at. I'm not saying abandon the defense. I'm not saying just forget about them. We'll go win games 80-72. It's not what I'm saying. But I think that this team does need to adjust their offensive identity. The defensive identity seems to be okay, or at least relatively intact. The Cincinnati game was rough, but in some ways it got cleaned up during that game. I'm okay with it. Whatever happens defensively, it happens. We're going to be fine. Offensively, that's where I think the mindset is just something's wrong. Something's off. And they're capable. That's why I'm so upset. It's a very capable offense. It's a high power. You have Rocco Becht, who has been making mistakes. I understand that. But it's still Rocco Becht. Are you telling me Tom Brady was perfect in every game of his career? I can tell you he wasn't. Now, he was always pretty good. But, I mean, there's the difference between Rocco Becht and Tom Brady. I'm just saying that not every quarterback is going to be perfect for every game. At some point, it's still Rocco Becht. It's still a very capable quarterback. It's still a very capable offense. I want to see him turn it back on offensively the rest of the season. They're capable of it. This is the first example, the first opportunity for them to get it done against BYU. All right, let's pivot. Let's talk basketball coming up here in just 1 second. Let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. We're switching gears. We're going to basketball to end out today's show. We talked about this on Friday. This game did not go the way I thought it would. I'm not going to lie to you. Here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Creighton kind of wiped the floor with Iowa State basketball. It was kind of ugly. Iowa State loses in an exhibition match to Creighton 58-71. At the half, it was 23-46. Okay. Iowa State did win the second half by 10 points, 35-25. Great. That's not really helpful when you're down 23, literally double what you have in the hoop at the half. Not ideal. There's a lot of concern around this Iowa State team right now. And the point of this segment is I wanted to come on here and at least voice my opinion of let's not hit the panic button yet. If you want to, that's fine. Go ahead. I am not going to stop you. I'm not going to pull that key out, untwist it, put the glass cover back on the red button. You can go ahead and hit that. It's a really cool sequence when they do that in movies. It's like insert the key, twist, the glass thing comes off the button, you hit it, all the lights turn off, whatever. It's a cool sequence. Go ahead and do it. Seems fun. I'm going to wait, though, because for one, this is a exhibition match to start this. Like, this is literally game one. This is nothing. I don't know. I don't even know how else to say that. We are so ridiculously new to this, like fresh to this season. I don't think it's even possible to make a judgment call on what we saw, right? Now, I know that Otzelberger said going into this game that, we're going to hold nothing back. We're going to go out and we're going to win every possession. And I think I said this. I find it hard to believe that he would absolutely go full throttle and give Creighton some tape. Like, I understand what he's saying. Like, at some point, you just have to be the better basketball team, and I do agree with that. I have no problem with that mentality. Honestly, I think it's a really good mentality to have. But from a head coach standpoint, like, is that really the smartest play? Like, it's easier for teams to be better when they know what you're going to do. You can be the better team, and if the other, and for a football reference, if the defense knows you're running counter strong, you have to be significantly better. Like Alabama versus, Clear Creek Amana middle school team level better to stop or to successfully run that play. If they know exactly where the ball is going, there's no need to have a secondary if it's a run play. If it's pass play, it's a little bit different. But if it's, you know what I'm saying? So if they know exactly what you're going to do, it's a little bit more difficult. They understand, they can anticipate better. It just, you have to be so much better than the other team to make that work, that I think that would maybe be a little bit of an oversight as a coach. Okay. I find it hard to believe he held absolutely nothing back, because there was no, I mean, if they were up by 50 in this game, then I'd say, yeah, they probably held some stuff back. Just no need to use it. Go out and play backyard basketball for the last 18 minutes of this game, whatever. It's not a big deal. I mean, they were down 23 points at the half. Give up what, 23-point run or something ridiculous in this game. So, or exhibition match, whatever. I'm just saying that they had all the reason to pull out every stop. I don't think they did. That's for one, right? I am not too concerned from that perspective. Now, if they did, if on some level, if they did do everything they possibly could, there is a level of concern there. But even then, keep in mind, we are going to see this team progress from now until March, right? Till April. This team is going to change. There are some holes in this roster, and I've seen people freak out about it, talk about it online. I agree. On some level, without Keyshawn and Curtis, where is the scoring coming from? On some level. But like I said, this is exhibition 1. We are so far away from this team even really understanding who they are, let alone executing who they are, that I have no concern. Okay? So if their identity becomes, let's just play hypotheticals here. If their identity becomes a team that doesn't really have a scorer, okay, and we saw this with Iowa State, I think it was 2 years ago, the year they lost to Illinois, I want to say, in the round of 16. Can't remember exactly where that was. Really just pulled that off the top of my head. But if you're a team that's going to score 50 points a game, most Division I teams can score 50 points a game. You just have the identity now, if you're going to win games, of holding your opponents to 49 points or less. That's a possibility. It's also possible that someone we haven't really seen play that well comes onto the scene and scores 40 points a game, right? Who's saying that, Dom Plata doesn't figure it out in 2 weeks and all of a sudden is the next LeBron James? Like, I'm not going to say he's not. So just keep that in mind, right? Now, I'm not saying to sit here and say, because I'm not going to say this team has absolutely no problems. They're going to win the Big 12. They're going to be undefeated. They're going to go in as a 1 seed. They won't have a game get within 10 points the rest of the season. I'm not saying that. It's just not the case. This is a very good basketball conference. They're going to have adversity this season. I don't think this roster is maybe the perfect roster, at least from what we're seeing right now. But that doesn't mean that it can't be put together. And of course, obviously without Taman as well in this one. So just keep that in mind when you're kind of freaking out a little bit, like, ooh, I thought we were going to have basketball to look forward to after football kind of fell apart. Like, now what do we have? You still have basketball. Okay. Next Sunday, they'll play Northwestern. We'll get another look. Even then, it's an exhibition again. So don't panic. Do not panic. They lost to Creighton. They'll play them again. I trust Otzelberger. I trust he'll get these guys right. It's literally game 1. Not even game 1. Exhibition 1. I'm not worried yet. I am not worried. What do you guys think of this exhibition match? What do you think of football right now? Let me know in the comments down below, or at Nick_Marv. Can't wait to read them all. That being said, until next time, Cyclone fans, sign.